Seen that the heavens and the earth, the skies and the earth was joined together as one piece, and God parted it asunder, and then he brought every living thing from water. Would they then not believe? Now look at how the Quran addresses them. Have they not seen or heard those who disbelieve? أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Those who are disbelievers, have they not known? Is he addressing the Muslims? No. He's addressing those who are not Muslims, who have disbelieved or not yet believed. And it's then addressing them and ending them saying, would you then not believe? So obviously, if God, Allah, starts a discussion or interaction with the non-believers, and then at the end he said saying, would you not then believe? What would you expect logically? That the substance provided in the middle is a substance to think and ponder and reflect, for them to say, yeah, I should believe now, because the Quran said, would you then not believe? So what did the Quran then provide within the middle? That the heavens and the earth was joined one piece, and there was a
What does that mean?
okay, we will see. This is the point of reflection. So it seems to talk about the common origin of the sky and the earth. They were actually one piece. The Arabs talked about rataq and fataq, where it's like this, and fataq is like a separation. So Quran says it was like ratqan, and it was fataqnahuma, fatq happened. So something that was all together, conjoined together, whatever. So the earth wasn't on itself, it was actually part of the sky, everything together, and then it was parted asunder, separation.
Exploded.
Right. What do we know? Well, asunder is like big. No. Let's talk about what the Quran talks about. Quran doesn't use the word explosion, but the understanding is it's like parted it asunder, right? When we know from astronomy, our current understanding is all the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the Milky Way, the galaxies, and our Earth, all of them was condensed together in one singularity, all in one unity. And hang on, what do you mean I believe? Science and Islam were like twin sisters.
I'm saying it's good. I'm saying it's good because I had a Christian guy today. He said it's a big thing.
No, but this is a model, remember, for you to understand this, a predominant model where this is what is understood scientifically, and then there was separation. Now this is where they describe scientifically was a big bang or an explosion, and it was very rapid, right? How we have come to the conclusion is how we're observing the stars receding from each other. We observe by looking at the red shift. Exactly. Right. So we go backwards, we extrapolate backwards, like they must be smaller, closer and closer, eventually must be singularity. But there are other models. There are other models, right? Different models, where it's actually not like this singularity and that was it. It could have been other multiverses beforehand. It could be big crunch and expansion, contraction, expansion, various models. The Quran seems to present to you a model where God created like this, and elsewhere he says, and we are expanding it. And elsewhere also he says, he's going to bring the universe back again, roll back like a scroll. Like a scroll that is rolled back, the universe will be rolled back again. So again, expansion will be contracted. This is the Quranic picture of how the universe's fate will be. Okay. Now scientifically, there's nothing wrong about this, nothing inaccurate about this, because our predominant model, highlight this is what we believe anyway. This is what our current understanding is. So, Quran addressed the unbelievers, gives something about natural phenomena, and says, have you not seen or known? As if like you would know. You would come to know, and we have come to know. It didn't end there with astronomy. It went to biology. It says, and then we brought every living thing from water. Every living thing from water. Now, some people often argue, there are many philosophers, they actually believe that everything is from water, but actually I haven't seen any philosophers, any scientists from the Greeks or the Hindus from the Orient, not Hindus, Indians, or from the East, where they talk about that every living thing was from water. They talked about how things originated from elements, fire, earth, air, water, or everything is from water, like thales, Okay, everything. But the Quran is quite specific. It says every living thing from water. And we know that from our understanding of science, but this is the case. So I am not propagating to you about how science is being taught from the Quran. The Quran is not teaching us science. Quran is addressing here a state of mind of a person who hasn't believed, and addresses, Quran engages with them, the author of the Quran, and says, this is what you should be reflecting on. Would you not then believe? Meaning what? There's enough material provided for you to think that yes, this thing is not just there, it's a creation of someone who's created with his knowledge and wisdom, and he created like this. Again, the theme consistently goes on. God created like this, he will recreate again. He created, look how he created this, he created again. The other example I alluded to earlier but haven't explained is when Allah says, some people say, when we are bones and dust, are you saying we're going to be resurrected again? Allah says, even to the tips of your fingers. Okay? This is how the Quran is. It doesn't say fingerprints, it says tips of your fingers. Now we know the tips of our fingers are special for a reason. Because we have...
Someone told him in a different way that he didn't make sense. That's why he's questioning.
Yeah. So when we look at these descriptions given to assess and to challenge someone's viewpoint, when the Quran is engaging with the people, saying, you think that when you're dead and you're rotten bones, you will not be brought back to alive? Obviously, there is a reason to bring you back alive, to implement justice, because you're not going to get away with all the wicked things that you've done. But not only that, this is the mechanism that I'm going to create you again. Was it difficult for me to create? What is difficult? To create human beings or create the universe, the skies and the heavens? Of course, the heavens. So if Allah is able to create heavens, it's easier to create human being and recreate them. And then he talks about how he can recreate you again. As unique as your fingerprints are, he can recreate you as unique as you have been. As he created you in your wombs, in those steps of processes, he can create you again. Just showing his creative ability so that people can't, argue and saying, oh, how can he create? How does he? Allah says, look, even from green tree, he can kindle fire. Yep. This is the ability of God. If he created you awwala marra, he can create you again. What's the ayah in Surah Al-Yasin?
خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو
الخلاق العليم
إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون.
So the last ayah says, whenever Allah wants to create something or do something, he just says be, and not that it was, it is. This is how Allah creates. Okay? Because to him he's not bound by time. We are limited in time. So now we've given you some examples of the natural phenomena described in the Quran for a reason behind it. Not just to teach us science, but to make a point. To make a point where Quran argues with people who want to or not want to believe in some things. Not in the resurrection, not in the creations of these heavens and the earth by a creator, or simply saying it's by chance, by nothing, and then the Quran addresses them. Let me give you one more example to show you when we talk about common sense and how the Quran gives this description where it's not about common sense. Again, scientific examples, right, of natural phenomena. Allah says, those people who you call besides Allah. Now listen to it. Allah sets a parable, an example. Allah sets you an example. Those you call upon Allah, they don't even have a power to create. Even if, they were to create something and the food is snatched away from it, they won't be able to take it back. They won't be able to create a fly. Do you remember this ayah about the fly? Yep. استمعوا ضرب لكم الأمثال, something like this. فاستمعوا له. All you people, let's do step by step. A parable is set forth, so listen carefully. Now who is it addressing? Ya ayyuhan nas.
All of us.
All of the human beings. All mankind. Right. So a parable is set forth, so listen to it carefully. فاستمعوا له. Okay. Then?
إن الذين تدعون من دون الله.
Those who call anyone besides Allah, they are not even able to create a fly. Even if they came together. for that purpose. They will not even create this fly.
وإن يسلبهم الذباب شيئا
If the fly were to snatch something away from them,
لا يستنقذوه منه
they will not be able to retrieve it.
ضعف الطالب والمطلوب.
Look how weak and feeble the one who seeks and the one who is sought. Right? So now let's look at this point. You think it's quite mundane, but when I look at it, it's very amazing thing to reflect on. Fly, the Quran is addressing people who call upon other than Allah, thinking like, oh, nature created it. Nature created us. This created us, this created us, or no one created us, giving the rights of Allah to someone else, right of God to someone else. Allah is saying, look, you, or collectively, you can't even create a fly. This is your power and ability. You can't even create a fly. Something that is so, nothing, so small, right? Fly, we try to like, what do we call it? Put this fly, yeah, they fly away, like a fly, just a fly. You can't even create a fly. If the fly were to snatch something away from your food, you weren't able to retrieve it. Now, what do you understand by that? Why is it so difficult to retrieve something from the fly? If the fly takes the food, I can catch the fly, right? I can trap it. Are you saying we can't trap a fly? No. You have now these swats, what do you call, like a, yeah? And you can just, and then you can kill the fly and get your food back, right? Or you can electrocute it, or you can actually have this net and put a net, you can, right? So why can we not? Allah says you cannot retrieve it.
It's digestive system.
Because? Because now what you know about the fly. What does the fly do? How does the fly snatch away food? Yeah, this fly has something called a proboscis, this kind of special tongue, right? What it does, you see the food here, imagine this is the food. This is the food. It doesn't just take the food, with this proboscis it spits on it. This already partly digests the food there before it's taken up. And then it sucks it back in. So the food is already irretrievable. When you boil an egg, you can't unboil it. If you understand that mechanism, when that is already digested, you can't undigest it. You can't make it right back to itself. So if the fly were to take that food from you, it's already irretrievable. Now, yeah. Now this information. Do you think people knew by common sense?
I mean, if you see an animal eats things.
No. This fly and its food.
They didn't know about that specific process, but that specific process was not in the Quran.
No. The Quran clearly says if a fly were to snatch it, you won't be able to retrieve it.
Yeah,
so when we now contemplate the mechanism, why God could have said a goat. You can get the goat, hold on to it, and get the grass out of his mouth, right? But here it says a fly. Specific example given for a fly, and we find a quite interesting mechanism of flies taking the food. It actually partly digests the food before it takes in.
But there's a lot of other animals that do that.
Let's talk about other animals. I am saying when the Quran uses an example, that example is something that you cannot just say common sense can bring this example. Our understanding of proboscis, our understanding of looking at the food and how it's digested, what it spits, the enzymes that it spits, now we're in a better position to understand. If you say in 7th century people all know about this something, you're actually giving too much credit to somewhere where they weren't able to know all this kind of information. So when the Quran gives you this information, you would say, that's quite amazing. Now, those people who would say Muslims, oh, that's a miracle, I would say, don't call it into miracle. Why? Miracle has its own definitions where, it should be a thing where it's something that you cannot replicate it. It goes against nature, you can't imitate it, you can't repeat it. That's what, it's beyond natural, contra-natural, beyond natural, supernatural, whatever. Because if fire is supposed to burn and the fire doesn't burn, you can call that a miracle. Like when Abraham was put in a fire, Quran describes, and the fire didn't burn. I can say this is a miracle, which God stopped the fire from burning, what normally it does. So when the Quran describes, there are
Ibrahim alayhi salam when he was sacrificing Ismail,
Yeah.
and he didn't cut.
well, he didn't actually cut because he was replaced. So when the Quran describes, there are elements which are miraculous, which is the linguistic aspects, which we can talk about, but other things are points of reflection, of pondering, where people should really go and, say, let me think about it deeply. How does the Quran come up with all these things, and yet it is accurate, yet it is not incorrect, yet it is not wrong? If you are guesswork in the 7th century, like, you know what, I think there is a small organism and it has 11 heads and 12 tails. You can do this guesswork. And then we don't discover anything like that. In fact, we find bacteria and different and so on and so forth, right? Guesswork had its limitation.
Yeah.
When the Quran describes so many things of natural phenomena, you can eliminate the process of guesswork. Because with guesswork, you can get something right, but you can get things wrong. So statistically speaking, there's a probability here. It's probable that you can get it right. It's probable that you can get it wrong, right? 50-50 chance. But if you have one thing, you got 50% chance to say that's right, it's going to be this or that, right? When it comes to probability.
Not really.
No, when it's a binary, when it's like either or, you got 50-50 chance, isn't it?
If you both toss it with the exact same probability of happening.
Yeah. So I'm simplifying it. If some description to be true, to get it true, meaning correct, as opposed to incorrect, you've got 50-50 chance. 50% chance to get